The tension between David Benavidez and David Morrell has been building for weeks, and now, just days away from their fight, things are heating up even more. Morrell has made it clear that he's not playing mind games or trying to intimidate Benavidez, he's just being himself. He laughs, he smiles, and he stays relaxed because that's his personality. But that confidence seems to be irritating Benavidez, who always looks like he's carrying a grudge. Morrell even joked that Benavidez always has an ugly, angry face like someone permanently stuck in a bad mood. The Cuban fighter believes Benavidez's aggressive and emotional nature will work against him in the ring. Instead of staying calm and focused, Benavidez fights with pure intensity and emotion, which could lead to costly mistakes against a skilled and composed fighter like Morrell. If Benavidez comes in swinging wildly, trying to overpower Morrell with sheer aggression, he could find himself walking straight into big counterpunches that could change the fight in an instant. On the other hand, Benavidez has built his entire career on overwhelming his opponents with pressure and an insane work rate. But Morrell isn't like the past fighters Benavidez has faced. He's younger, sharper, and has devastating knockout power. The Cuban star has been waiting for an opportunity like this to prove he's the real deal, and he's not afraid of Benavidez's reputation. He knows that if he fights smart and avoids getting into an unnecessary brawl, he can pick Benavidez apart and possibly stop him before the final bell. While Benavidez fans believe their fighter will be too much for Morrell to handle, the reality is that Morrell has the skill set to expose every flaw in Benavidez's game. If Benavidez lets his emotions get the best of him and rushes in recklessly, this fight could turn into a nightmare for him. Morrell is ready to shock the world, and with the way these two are going at it, this fight could be one of the most explosive battles of the year. David Morrell wants to make one thing clear: he's not trying to play mind games with David Benavidez or get inside his head by laughing, staying calm, and enjoying himself during their press conferences. That's just his natural personality. Morrell believes that Benavidez, on the other hand, is always in a bad mood, constantly carrying a chip on his shoulder like he has something to prove. From the way he talks to the way he presents himself, Benavidez always seems angry, almost as if he's permanently irritated. Morrell thinks that if Benavidez had trained under the Cuban national boxing system, he would have been forced to either learn emotional control or been left behind entirely. The Cuban system does not tolerate undisciplined fighters, and it demands a level of composure that Benavidez simply does not seem to have. Some fighters are just naturally hot-headed, and Morrell sees Benavidez as one of those guys who lets his emotions take over too easily. But the problem is, fighting emotionally against a skilled, calculated, and disciplined Cuban-style boxer like Morrell is a disaster waiting to happen. The raw aggression and reckless pressure that Benavidez brings might have worked against older, slower opponents in the past, but this Saturday, he is stepping into the ring with a young, sharp, and highly dangerous fighter who won't be drawn into unnecessary exchanges. Morrell has the skills to make him pay for every mistake, and if Benavidez can't control his temper and fight smart, he could find himself walking into shots that he won't recover from. One of Benavidez's biggest weaknesses, according to Morrell, is his inability to control his emotions, both inside and outside the ring. He always seems fired up, looking for a confrontation, and that could lead him straight into big trouble when he steps into the ring on fight night. Even during the final press conference, Benavidez was visibly agitated, acting wild, getting into heated exchanges with Morrell's team, and standing up aggressively like he was ready to fight right then and there. That kind of reckless energy can be dangerous, especially when facing a skilled counterpuncher who knows how to remain composed under pressure and take advantage of over-aggression. In boxing, emotions can be a fighter's worst enemy, and Morrell believes that Benavidez's anger could be his downfall. While Benavidez has gotten away with this approach in the past, he's never fought someone like Morrell, an opponent who has the power, speed, and ring intelligence to make him pay for every single mistake. If Benavidez comes forward without a solid game plan, throwing wild punches in an attempt to overwhelm Morrell, he could end up walking right into a perfectly timed counter that changes the entire fight. This matchup isn't just about skill, it's about control, patience, and strategy. And if Benavidez can't keep his cool and fights purely on emotion, he might not just suffer a loss, he could get knocked out in a fight that completely alters the trajectory of his career, proving that brute force alone isn't enough to beat a calculated, highly skilled opponent like Morrell. Morrell has pointed out something that many boxing analysts have noticed about Benavidez. His aggressive, all-out pressure style has worked well against certain opponents, but it has also exposed some clear vulnerabilities. Against fighters who are older, slower, and less mobile, Benavidez has been able to impose his will, break them down, and overwhelm them with volume punching. However, when he faced a skilled boxer like Alexander Gvozdyk, cracks in his game began to show. While Benavidez still won, he took a lot of unnecessary damage, especially in the later rounds when his high-energy style began to wear him down. If Gvozdyk, who isn't known for being a devastating puncher, was able to land cleanly and frequently on Benavidez, what will happen when he faces Morrell, a fighter with significantly more power and precision? Morrell won't just stand there and trade shots recklessly. He's going to make Benavidez work for every exchange, punish him when he overcommits, and force him to fight at a pace that could drain him faster than he expects. If Benavidez gets reckless, Morrell has the ability to land something big and turn the fight in his favor. Another major factor that could play a role in this fight is Morrell's extensive amateur experience compared to Benavidez's more limited background. Morrell came up through the disciplined Cuban boxing system, where technical ability and ring IQ are drilled into fighters from a young age. He has fought against a wide variety of styles and understands how to adjust his approach mid-fight based on what his opponent is doing. Benavidez, on the other hand, turned professional at a young age and never had that same level of amateur development. While he has built a strong professional record, he has mostly faced opponents who were already past their prime or not physically capable of matching his size and volume. Morrell is different. He's younger, fresher, and much more skilled than most of the fighters Benavidez has faced. That means Benavidez won't be able to rely on his usual strategy of overwhelming his opponent with relentless pressure. If he doesn't come in with a well-thought-out game plan and a willingness to adapt, he could find himself being outboxed and outclassed by a fighter who knows how to exploit his weaknesses. Despite all of this, there are still those who believe that Benavidez's work rate and relentless pressure will ultimately be too much for Morrell. Benavidez has been in the ring with solid competition, including Caleb Plant and Demetrius Andrade, and has proven that he can break down opponents over time. However, one key detail that critics of Morrell like to point out is his lack of experience against top-tier opponents. While he has looked spectacular in the fights he's had, his toughest opponent so far has been Yamaguchi Falco, who is nowhere near the level of Benavidez. That raises the question, is Morrell really as good as he looks, or has he just not been tested yet? This fight will be the ultimate proving ground for both men. If Morrell can dominate Benavidez the way he has dominated his previous opponents, it will be clear that he's a truly elite fighter who belongs at the very top of the division. But if Benavidez can handle Morrell's power and use his relentless pressure to wear him down, it will prove that his style is still effective even against younger, fresher competition. At the end of the day, this fight isn't just about two fighters going head-to-head, it's about two completely different styles and mindsets clashing in a way that could have huge implications for the light heavyweight division. Benavidez is the aggressive, non-stop pressure fighter who relies on volume and toughness, while Morrell is the calculated, highly skilled counterpuncher with knockout power. If Benavidez wins, it will cement his status as one of the most dangerous fighters in the division and put him in line for even bigger fights. But if Morrell wins, it will send shockwaves through boxing and announce him as the next big thing at 175 pounds. Either way, fans are in for a thrilling showdown between two fighters with everything to prove.